Is this marking a new peak in terms of the tensions between the U.S. and China over the last 3 or 4 years?
I think it really is. It's an unprecedented move from the U.S. government in the consumer technology sector. You've never seen the U.S. do this before. These are against incredibly important Chinese tech firms. It would sever communications between a lot of Chinese living in the United States, as well as Americans that have connections with people in China. And it probably will lead to significant retaliation from the Chinese government, which they had not done before yet. For example, putting American corporations on the unreliable entities list, big American tech companies as well. So, I mean, you clearly can say that we have a technology Cold War right now between the two largest economies in the world. And given the importance of that sector and the growing importance of that sector to the global economy, that's a pretty critical move, probably the biggest thing that's happened in terms of an unwind of globalization, biggest single step that I've seen in decades.
Do we think, Ian, that the Chinese will be willing to pause until after the election to consider what retaliation that they might wish to enact? Is that a factor perhaps that the market is allowing itself to rest easy on?
I don't think so, especially because, we still have 90 days before the election. And the steps that you've seen, the additional sanctions taken against Hong Kong, for example, the most important state enterprise in Xinjiang. I mean, this was all happened in the last week, not just TikTok and WeChat. And the idea that Trump is going to stop at this over the next 3 months when he's fighting an election that he's behind in right now, and he sees going after China as a core plank for his electoral's re-election bid. The Chinese government is not going to sit on their hands through all of this. So no, absolutely not. I don't believe it. And if you look at what the Chinese state media has been saying over the last few days, the level of propaganda and the animosity coming from their headlines is really much greater than anything we've seen in the course of the Trump administration to date.
I'm trying to read between your comments, Ian. So in your opinion, President Trump banning TikTok and WeChat, does it have more to do with politics or national security?
Oh, I mean, it's clearly both. I mean, the fact is that China does have access by virtue of being a state capitalist authoritarian government with these big tech companies. They have the ability to grab data. We stopped the Chinese from buying Grindr, that popular dating app, because people were concerned in the U.S. government that could be used to blackmail Americans in government, politicians. So, I mean, this is a continuation of that policy. But, Sarah, the escalation that you're seeing right now, 3 months before the election, is not a coincidence. I guess the reason you're parsing between the comments is because both things are going on here. It reminds me when President Xi Jinping first took office and he had this staggering anti-corruption campaign. People were asking me, well, is this really about anti-corruption or is it about consolidating power? And my answer, of course, was yes. Well, the answer here is yes, Sarah.
Ian, we've seen some other headline-grabbing deals over the last month or so. China announcing an energy deal with Iran, which, of course, laughs in the face of the U.S. sanctions on Iran. At the same time, U.S. selling military equipment, including drones, to Taiwan, which no doubt angers the Chinese, much more than just political game playing. This is seriously antagonistic behavior, each side would view it as. I mean, what is the risk of this going more than just economic, more than just tech?
Well, the decision to send even Secretary Azar to Taiwan, I mean, that's the highest ranking visit that you've seen in 40 years to Taiwan. That was gratuitous escalation, unnecessary from the United States. And there, my answer to Sarah's question would be that's mostly about politics. That's not really about national security. So the willingness of the Trump administration to really take gloves off and escalate against China, I think is much greater than most people had anticipated a few months ago. When you add to that things like the South China Sea, where the Americans have increased the FONOPs, the military FONOPs in the region, and now say that they accept the International Court at The Hague's ruling that formally that China's nine-dash line does not apply, the likelihood that we could see a military dust-up that escalates is real. It's a tail risk. The Chinese, of course, are nowhere near the military power the Americans are, and they don't want to get into a shooting war with the Americans. I want to be very clear about that. But we also saw in the case of Iran that President Trump felt like he could escalate significantly precisely because the Iranians wouldn't be able to respond meaningfully against the Americans. And I do worry, that in the next 3 months, if Trump thinks there's a meaningful shot that he's going to lose the election, his willingness to be risk acceptant with the Chinese is miles greater than that of any president in our lifetime.